This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How we doing today on a hump day? It's the first day of July, and it is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, on the BamaCentral Facebook page. You're listening to us on Apple Podcast, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can find the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. We are proudly presented by Derek Daniel, State Farm Insurance. Make sure you call Derek for all of your insurance needs at 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel is there. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. We appreciate Derek for sponsoring the program, and we appreciate Purple Turtle Roofing for sponsoring the show as well. You can check them out at roofturtle.com for your free roof inspection. Sorry, it's obviously a little later in the day than we usually do the show. It is the first day of NHL free agency, and I have been tasked to watch the Nashville Predators for the Nashville Predators on SI, so I kind of was doing a little bit of that this morning. And Theo, yesterday's weather delay in the Mexico match, it meant that Theo was not going to join us today, so I woke up a little later and handled that hockey business before I wanted to jump into the show. We miss Theo. Make sure you follow him at Theo Fernandez __ on the Twitter machine. He's not going to be with us today, but as the World Cup has already started action, you have England and DR Congo already playing. DR Congo has taken a 1-0 early lead over England, so the action has already started. Theo told me that when it's a Team USA day, the executives at Fox Sports really get everybody on task early, so he couldn't join us this morning because it is a Team USA day. Jeremy Scott getting ready on the Facebook machine saying roll tide and go with USA. I hope you're all in front of a television later tonight as Team USA is taking on Bosnia-Herzegovina at 7 o'clock. In between, you'll have Belgium and Senegal. I would have expected England to have won very easily over DR Congo, but some of their offensive struggles look to have continued, and DR Congo is up 1-0. I do think that that Belgium will beat Senegal despite Belgium's kind of iffy play, and I expect America to win tonight over Bosnia-Herzegovina. I think the crowd, look, if you saw it last night with the Mexico match, the crowd was not on 10, not on 11, the crowd broke the Richter scale down in Mexico last night, and so I expect the crowd to do the same for the American team today, getting behind Team USA and spurring the boys on to a big old win tonight, and we'll see parties in the street. It will be incredible tonight. Jeremy Scott, you're exactly right. It is like March Madness right now. Survive and advance. So we will see what Team USA can do tonight. Theo did say that he plans on joining us tomorrow, so you can let him know that you missed him by calling the voicemail line at 205-462-7340, extension 800. If you want to leave us a voicemail on the Team USA match tonight, on any of the recruiting stuff that we've been talking about, any of the early opponent previews. There's Kerry Simpson joining us. Love you, baby. USA. It's going to be a big night tonight on Fox as Team USA gets going in the round of 32, in the knockout round. Okay, so what are we going to do? Solo show. It has been a long time since I have done a solo show. I have really leaned on all my co-hosts over the last couple of years. You had Mason Woods for a long, long time. I miss you, Mason. I hope he's doing well. I'm always thinking about him. And then Theo Fernandez has really stepped up over the last year to help us as well. So a solo show, and I just have two topics for the folks. I want to get into, we did this last year in the summer, and I want to get into it right now as we are still, waiting on Alabama football to restart. I know it's July 1st, so it is getting closer. And with it being July 1st, shout out my sister Ellen, and happy birthday. Hope you're having a happy birthday, enjoying everything that you love, and looking forward to the year ahead. But we did this last year, and I want to do it again. I want to talk about my top 10 football players on the Alabama roster. I think the Alabama roster is really talented, but I think it's heavily skewed in a couple of areas. The talent is really, really consolidated, especially in the back end of the Alabama defense. I have my top 10 players. I have 5 honorable mentions, and I have players that I think in the future will be on the list. Not going to be on the list this season based on opportunities and based on depth charts, but I think are going to be such good football players. They're going to be talented football players that in the future they will be top 10 football players on the Alabama roster, probably in 2027 or 2028. So I want to talk about the top 10 Alabama football players on the Alabama roster, and then I want to look at this Pete Nakos article from On3 Sports. He put it out this morning. He said, inside the most expensive June yet in high school recruiting. The quote is, there are no layups anymore. And it gets into several of the top end recruits, how much they're asking for, what a 4-star goes for these days. You know, you're looking at the Alabama class and you're seeing a ton of 3 stars and only 2 4-stars and the 1 5-star. So he gets into kind of what the price point is for these 4 stars. And I think the article is pretty interesting as you're considering really what Alabama's strategy is in the recruiting and in the transfer portal, in roster management as you head into the 2027 or 2026 season. So let's get into it. We'll do top players first, then we'll look at this Pete Nakos article second. And so we'll just get right into it. Let me make sure I have my little sounder here. Let's turn the intro music off right there. Let's turn that off. Let's bump the sound back up to about 50 and see. Hey, I thought that'll do for us right there. Maybe a little higher, about 70 or so. Is that a little too loud for you? That'll work for everybody. All right, we like it. That's the sound effect, and we'll count 10-1. Our top 10 players on the Alabama Crimson Tide roster. I am starting with sophomore Lazier Brooks. I think that Alabama has a lot of good football players, and I think Lazier Brooks is one of them. He showed himself last year. His quickness in short areas, I think, is absolutely elite. Obviously, you all know he's a little undersized, but the straight line speed and the quickness makes him just a very unique weapon for this Alabama football program. And I expect him to step into a much larger role this second season here in town, especially after he proved himself down the stretch of the 2025 season. So I'm going Lazier Brooks at number 10. And he is one of 2 true pass catchers, but 3 pass catchers in my top 10. So number 10, I am going Lazier Brooks. We'll get all these top 10s from Theo and from some other people as we keep going in the summer. But number 9, I am going into the transfer portal. I have how many transfers on this list? I have 1, 2, 3 transfers on my top 10. But my first one is number 9, tight end Josh Ford. Josh Ford has come from Oklahoma State, and if you remember this exercise from the last 2 seasons ago, I had Robbie Oots really high on my list because I think that he was a versatile football player for that 2024 team, able to be effective enough in the passing game, but really, really, really effective in the running game. And I think that that's what Josh Ford is going to come into Tuscaloosa and do. I think he'll give Austin Mack or Keelan Russell a pretty reliable target, but not anybody who's going to break the game open. That's not really what his role is going to be. He's going to be the safety blanket, the security man. Who, oh, crap, everything's breaking down. Josh Ford is a couple yards away. Let me dump it down to him. But what you've heard from Josh Ford in the last over spring and into the summer is his physicality and grit. And I think, look, if you watched Alabama football last season, the offense certainly lacked physicality and grit. Now, the offense did a lot of good things, but really struggled moving the other team off the football consistently. And I think Josh Ford is going to impact that area a lot. I really like what you got out of freshman Caleb Edwards and freshman Marshall Pritchett. I think Jay Lindsey gave you everything he could last season. Obviously, Danny Lewis dealt with all kinds of injuries. So you never really had that replacement from the C.J. Dupree and the Robbie Oots dual tight end class that could block and be be effective pass catchers. He didn't replace that last season. I think the freshmen tried their best, and I think Caleb did okay with the blocking, and I think Marshall sometimes chipped in with some pass catching. I expect Caleb to be a little better this season from the tight end spot in the pass catching area, but nobody, I don't think any of the rising sophomore tight ends are going to be capable enough to give you a well-rounded look from the tight end's position, and I think Josh Ford can. So I think he's going to basically take your tight end one role, depending on Danny Lewis's health, the walking injury. But Josh Ford, I think, will be your lead tight end, and I think will give you some of those Robbie Oots, CJ Dupree, I can block, I can tackle, I can block, I can catch passes. Obviously, Josh Cuevas gave you everything he could last year, but I don't really think that Cuevas was a great run blocker by any means. And so I think that you should see that improve this coming season with Josh Ford. And so he comes in as my number 9 football player. Number 8 on the Alabama football team is the new wearing number 1 now. No, he's wearing number 2 now. What did Ryan Williams change his number to? Coleman, I always get it confused now. He changed it to number 1, right? Yeah, he was number 2. He's changed it to number 1. And so Ryan Coleman Williams comes in as my number 8 football player. Was it 1? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm just having a short brain fart. I have Ryan Williams. Look, you can't have this list and not have Ryan Williams. I know he struggled last season in some areas, and he struggled with the drops over 2 years, and he's trying to become a more hands catcher as he develops and prepares his way for the NFL. But just getting him the ball in his hands, he was Alabama's most electric playmaker last season. He was Alabama's most electric playmaker the season before as a true freshman, and I expect him to be Alabama's most electric playmaker this year as a true junior. I think he's put on some weight to improve in the blocking department. If you heard us yesterday talking about Asani Gales, you heard us talking about him blocking on his highlight tape. I think Ryan Coleman Williams, he's been a fine blocker. He hasn't been a great run blocker. He's been a fine blocker. And so for him, putting on some weight and getting better in that area and continuing to improve as a pass catcher with your hands, I think is very important for Ryan Coleman Williams. I think he is going to take strides in those areas, but I don't know if he's going to end up being, that's the clear-cut best player on the team based on some of the players we're going to talk about. But I think Ryan Williams is unquestionably a top 10 player for Alabama. And so that's why I have him right there at number 8. Ryan Coleman Williams. Oh my gosh, that's going to be so hard for me to get used to saying. What a mouthful. But we want to respect his wishes, changing his name to Ryan Coleman Williams. Number 7 and number 6, I've got 2 transfers coming in back to back. I am going number 7 with Devin Tompkins, and I'm going number 6 with Terrence Green. I think both these guys need to be one of your 10 best football players on the roster. Based on what you don't have on the defensive line, you lost a lot in the defensive line room, and you went out into the transfer portal. And I think you scored 2 guys that have the potential to be really, really good football players. I think Devin Tompkins has shown it already a little bit at USC as a good pass rushing defensive lineman, someone who needs to improve, holding up his blocks, holding up his gap, and shedding blockers in the run game. He does need to improve in that area. But I think that everything you heard in the spring about him was that he was playing with physicality. He was bringing an edge. He was holding his other defensive teammates accountable, and he's really taking on a leadership role. And so Devin Tompkins from USC, I'm expecting big things out of him this season. And so I'm putting him at number 7 on my Alabama 2026 top 10 players list. And at number 6, I'm going with the other transfer that's going to be playing right next to him. You got to replace Tim Keenan. Yeah, and I thought Tim had a fine season last year, had a better season than his 2024 year. But Tim really was best in the Nick Saban system, playing that true nose guard. I think you can have a real upgrade right there in the middle of your defense with Terrence Green, because I think that he's going to be a man mover. I think he's going to eat up blocks in the run game, and I think he's going to give you interior pressure in the passing game. And if you're an offense, that's the biggest thing to avoid is interior pressure. If Terrence Green can give you pass rush and break down the pocket from the middle of the Alabama defense, it's going to open up all kinds of options for Yancey Pierre and for other pass rushing linebackers to really affect some things. And it's really going to allow Kane Womack to not call as many blitzes as he's had to over the last 2 seasons. He's had to use some stunts and blitzing, probably more than he would like to. And if Terrence Green comes on and is what I expect him to be, then I think you'll see Alabama dial back the blitz a little bit and allow the defensive front to really create that penetration and to disrupt opposing offenses and to really, really set the defense into good positions. So I'm going 7-6, kind of combined right there with Devin Tompkins 7 and Terrence Green 6. And now the list is about to get really skewed because I have 5 more picks and 3 of them come from the exact same place in the Alabama team. 3 of them come from the exact same place, and 4 of them all come on the defensive side of the football. I think the offensive talent is good, but I think the defensive talent is great. And so number 5 for me on the 2026 Alabama top 10 players list is going to be sophomore cornerback Dijon Lee. I think you saw what Dijon Lee could be last season in the second half of the year. Obviously, that first game, he got burnt a little bit by Squirrel White against Florida State. But I think he really came along throughout the year and got comfortable playing in the Kane Womack system. And I think it was he and Xavier Brown, I think, give you one of the best cornerback tandems in the entire country this year. I love his length. I love his attitude. I love his playmaking ability. I know it was against Eastern Illinois last season, but the one-handed interception off the Eastern Illinois running back's back was just absurd last year. So his ball skills are through the roof. He's young. He's growing. I think he will be even better than what he was last year. And I think for a true freshman, he was pretty darn good last season. So I love Dijon Lee's length, and I have him as my number 5 player on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Number 4, I'm going pass rusher, Yancey Pierre. You got to have a pass rush, and Yancey Pierre came along last season, 8 sacks last year, and I think you would expect to see 12 or more this year. Now, look, is there a chance to fall off that? Yes, of course. But I would expect if you're a Yancey Pierre stan, to see him really, really disrupting the teams and wrecking offenses right from the jump. You remember his circumstances last year. He wasn't really the true starter. He was slotted behind Quay Russaw, and then Quay got hurt, and Yancey came in and made all kinds of headway and took advantage of his opportunity, really disrupting that Tennessee game and that LSU game in particularly. So I'm expecting big things out of Yancey. All that I've heard over the spring and summer is that he's locked in and that he's elevated his mental game and that he's physically staying on top of things. And so I'm expecting Yancey Pierre to start this season and to be one of the big game wreckers in the whole SEC, really. And you need that, especially with what's going on, bringing in a bunch of transfers on the defensive line. You're going to need a dominant edge rusher that you can say, hey, man, just go beat a tackle right here. I think Yancey can do that, and I think you should look forward to a really, really big season for Yancey Pierre. Number 3 comes my final offensive player on the list, and it is right tackle or right guard, Michael Carroll. It's going to be really interesting to see what Alabama does with Michael Carroll this season. You got Javen James, who's transferred in from Mississippi State, who seems like he's going to be the right tackle based on movement in the spring. I don't know about that so much. I think that Michael Carroll gives you really an A-plus offensive lineman, who embraces physicality, who plays with good pad level, who plays with good hands, who stays kind of down in his hips and drives through blocks very, very well. I'm going to be really, really interested to see where Adrian Clem ultimately settles on playing Michael Carroll. And I think it's less of a Michael Carroll can't play tackle issue and more of a who are our best 5 offensive linemen and what positions can they play. I know that Michael Carroll can play right tackle. I know he can play right guard. I would bet he could play left guard or left tackle as well, but I think you're kind of set in certain directions there. And so really for this Alabama coaching staff, they're looking at who can play serviceable right tackle or who can play serviceable right guard because Michael Carroll has got the other position down pat. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him this year. And look, what they do with him, I think, will kind of tell you what they think about the rest of the room. Do they really like Nick Brooks? Do they really like Ethan Fields? Do they really like Jaden James? I think that's going to tell you a lot about what those guys are going to be able to give you in 2026 and beyond. But I think Michael Carroll showed you a lot last season, really working his way into a starting position, supplanting Wilkin Thornby as the starting right tackle. And look, he had some normal freshman struggles in some areas, but I think watching offensive line play is one of the more difficult things that the fans can do because you don't always know the assignment. You don't always know the protection calls. You don't always know who's being let go and who's on the quarterback to deal with. I think it's very difficult to decipher. And so a lot of ways I thought that Michael Carroll played well last year. And I think a lot of the areas where he might have struggled might have been schematically, might have been, okay, that wasn't his fault. Might have been, okay, he's picking up one guy and another guy gets let free. Did they have the right protection on? I think it's very, very difficult to assess some mistakes on certain offensive linemen depending on what looks you're getting. So I'm expecting a big season out of Michael Carroll. I'm expecting him to start every game, and I'm expecting him to be Alabama's best offensive lineman. So I have him at number 3 on my list. And number 2, I had a hard time going either Xavier Brown or Bray Hubbard, but I went Bray Hubbard number 2, and I went Xavier Brown number 1. Spoil the rest of the list right there. I just think this Alabama secondary is the bee's knees. I think this Alabama secondary is as good as it gets as far as college football secondary goes. I've already talked about Dijon Lee. You got Xavier Brown right there at number 1. I'm putting Bray Hubbard number 2. I have Keon Sabb as an honorable mention. I thought about Red Morgan. I thought about Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. I think this Alabama secondary is by far and away the strongest point on the Alabama team, and I don't even think it's that close to any other position group on the field. I know wide receiver, you got Ryan Coleman Williams and Lucier Brooks, and you're excited about that pairing, but you have an entire unit and backups that I think that you're very, very confident in the secondary. I think if you're an Alabama football fan, you should enjoy seeing Xavier for one more season because he's going to be a surefire lock first-round draft pick and probably a top 16 pick in next year's NFL draft. You can just think about the Tennessee game, the Oklahoma game, go back to his freshman year, the Georgia game in Tuscaloosa where he makes the game-sealing interception. Xavier has been on the right side of so many huge plays over the last 2 seasons. And Bray as well. Bray has gone from high school quarterback to, hey, I am a serviceable safety to, I am a head-hunting, you don't want to mess with me, SEC safety. And so Bray has elevated his game every single season, and I expect him to elevate it again this year. I know that he had a rough moment last year against Florida State and everybody that stuck out in everybody's minds. But I think that Bray really bounced back nicely from that game. And I suspect everybody was sick. It never came out, but my suspicion was that a lot of the team was dealing with some sort of illness going into that Florida State game. And I think Bray was chief among them trying to battle through some illnesses. They never said that, but that was really the suspicion as I was trying to, hey, what really happened down there in Tallahassee? So I think Bray and Xavier are easily your 1 and 2 best players. If you want to put Bray 1, I'm not going to argue with you too much. I think Xavier is just that technically sound, and I think he plays with such fluid hips, and his length is really good. He's got great eye discipline, and so I really love Xavier Brown's game. I'm not going to say he's Pat Surtain because Pat Surtain was just a cornerback all in his own class. Pat Surtain was the perfect cornerback, honestly, especially for the college level, and he's continued that in the NFL. I think Xavier is a few steps away from that, but I think that Xavier is pretty daggum good when you think about a college cornerback, and so I'm excited to see what his junior season is going to be here in Tuscaloosa. For my honorable mentions, I had a bunch of players that I put honorable mentions. I put Keon Sabb 11, Red Morgan 12, Justin Hill 13, William Sanders 14, and London Simmons 15. As my honorable mentions. I think you're going to have some good football players. I think William Sanders is going to be a really good football player this coming season. I am a little nervous that you didn't see him in spring practice dealing with some injury, and he wasn't a full-time starter last year, so I was hesitant to put him in my top 10. Same thing for Justin Hill. I think that he shows all the traits of a game-wrecking defensive end, but didn't start a full season last year and probably not in line to start this season with Yanzi Pierre in front of him. But I do think you're going to see packages where Justin Hill and Yanzi Pierre are out there on the field together. And because of that, I think Justin's going to get a lot of opportunities, and he's going to make a lot of plays that makes the Alabama fan base really happy. Same thing for Red Morgan. I think Red Morgan's made a lot of plays over his time this year. I do think that he's probably right there, your lead dog to start at Husky this season. But there's a lot of competition. There is a ton of competition, whether it be Xavier Mincy, whether it be Drake Kirkpatrick Jr., whether it be Jira Edwards, whether it be really anyone, Zion Gibson. You got a lot of competition. Ivan Taylor in that secondary for the Husky position. So we'll see if Red Morgan can take it and hold it this year. But I think he's just so versatile, so physical. If you watch the show at any point in time, you realize that physicality is so valued, and so that's why you see the list kind of skewed the way it is. I think Red Morgan is extremely, extremely physical. And London Simmons just impressed me so much as a 3-star defensive lineman, true freshman last season. I expect the work ethic that we heard about last summer leading into the fall to continue, and I think London Simmons is going to take a huge, huge step forward. All right, so the last little piece of this conversation is players that, I went through the entire roster in RollTide.com, and I started this guy, listing them, and I started reordering them and renumbering them. I've got a bunch of players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players that I think will end up on this list eventually, not in 2026, but I think next year in 2027, gonna be right there banging down the door, because look how many players are gonna be gone off this list in 2027. Xavier Brown, NFL draft, Bray Hubbard out of eligibility, Yanzi Pierre, NFL draft. You're gonna have Devin Tompkins, probably NFL draft. You got I think Terrence Green is a senior, maybe he might be out of eligibility. Ryan Williams. So you're gonna have 5 or 6 spots open up just because of eligibility or NFL draft. I have 8 players here that I think can fill this next summer. And I'm going back to the tight end room to start with Caleb Edwards. I think Caleb Edwards is developing nicely and will be a weapon in the passing game, will be a weapon for Alabama this season, in the next 2 seasons, really, because I think that his versatility, run game and pass game, will allow Alabama to disguise really their intentions a little better in the coming seasons. I think Jackson Lloyd will ascend to be one of the top 10 players on this team, because I think that he athletically just looks the part. We'll see if he can play with physicality this season. I think that's going to be a real question mark this year, how he holds up against SEC teams, SEC defenses as a true sophomore. I think Jira Edwards and Xavier Griffin, the rest of this list outside of Ivan Taylor are all true freshmen. But I think Jira Edwards is a football playing Jesse. I don't know if you really want him as outside corner, but I think he could do it in a pinch. Maybe I just believe in him in that much. I think that he can play sub linebacker. I think he can play Husky. I think he can play pretty much either of the safety positions. So I can't wait to see how Jira Edwards is utilized in this Kane Womack system. Same thing for Xavier Griffin. I think he's going to be a great stinger, but I think he's going to be a great edge rusher as well. And you think back to how Jahad Campbell was used in Kane Womack's first season. I think Xavier Griffin will be on that path. I'm not sure if you're going to see him fulfill that this season with kind of the depth at linebacker, the depth at the edge rusher position, but I think he's going to be groomed to really kind of serve as Kane Womack's chess piece over the next 3 seasons. and I think Xavier Griffin's going to be on this list for sure. E.J. Crowell, I didn't put any running backs on this list because you all saw the running game last season, and I don't want to get hyped up at all for the Alabama run game until we see something. But I do think DJ Crowell has potential. Look, you guys know I loved A.K. Deer. A.K. runs like a deer as a true freshman last year. I still like him a lot. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he will do this coming season. But I think E.J. Crowell is a real football player and will be on this list in the future just because of his versatility, his physicality, and the way that I think that you will be able to really lean on him in his college career. Sedarian Morgan, same sort of thing. True freshman, not going to have tons of opportunity this year. I think he's going to get on the field, but the wide receiver room is pretty stacked. But I think Sedarian Morgan is just a real physical football player who embodies the dirty work, embodies everything about being an Alabama player, and loves everything about wide receiver, whether it be catching the passes or blocking on the outside. So I like Sedarian Morgan to make this list in the future. I like Ivan Taylor to make this list. He, Jackson Lloyd, and Caleb Edwards are the only non-freshmen on this list. I was going to say upperclassmen, but they're not really upperclassmen. I think Ivan Taylor, everything you heard about him last season as a true freshman was how hard he hit, how focused he was, how attentive to detail he was. And so if he continues on that track, I think Ivan Taylor will make this list in the future. And then lastly, I think Chris Booker is going to make this list in the future. The true freshman offensive lineman who's out of Georgia. I am in love with Chris Booker's game. I think he needs another 20 pounds of strength to really become a full-time SEC offensive lineman. But I think Chris Booker as an interior offensive lineman, probably a guard, is going to be everything that you need in this Kalen Womack, or excuse me, in this Kalen DeBoer offense. I really like the way he plays. I really like his physicality, and I like his technique. I think he plays with great pad level, and I think he embraces the running game aspect and the physicality aspect of football. And so I expect him to make the list in the future as well. So 8 players I expect to make the list in the future as top 10 Alabama football players, but not going to be there yet in 2026. I've got tight end Caleb Edwards, offensive tackle Jackson Lloyd, safety Jaira Edwards, linebacker Xavier Griffin, running back E.J. Crowell, wide receiver Sedarian Morgan, safety Ivan Taylor, and offensive lineman Chris Booker. All right, had a lot of time, had a lot of fun this year. Okay, yep. So Jeremy Scott chiming in. 1-0 DR Congo still at halftime. We'll see. We'll see if they are Cinderella as they are leading England. I love it when an underdog leads at the World Cup because you can see the shock and the entitlement set in with the favored nations. You saw it the other day with Germany and Paraguay, the kind of deadpanned, this shouldn't be reality, having a hard time accepting the reality that's unfolding in front of their faces is just so... I don't know what it is about that emotion, but it gets me so excited to see the soccer elite humbled by little old Paraguay, and right now England being humbled by DR Congo. I love it. Now I do, there's a lot of players on the English team that I enjoy watching play, but seeing the little guy, seeing the underdog shock the favorites makes me so excited. It gives me so much joy. So I'm looking forward to the World Cup as it keeps going. And may it never end. May it never end. We'll see. All right, let's transition one time and hit one second topic here before we get out of here on this Wednesday. We've had a lot of fun on a solo show. I appreciate Jeremy Scott watching and leaving us comments. I appreciate Kerry Simpson watching and leaving us comments as well. You can leave us comments on the Bama Central Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, right there on the Twitter machine. Make sure you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can find the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, and the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central is sponsored by Purple Turtle Roofing. At Purple Turtle Roofing, we're not just another contractor. We're your neighbor and your advocate when it comes to protecting your home or business. With years of hands-on experience, top-tier certification, and a commitment to excellence, we've built a reputation as Alabama's go-to roofing solution. We specialize in residential roofing, commercial roofing, emergency storm repairs, full-on roof replacements, insurance claim support, and more. You can check them out online at roofturtle.com or call them at 877-787-6635. When you check them out online, you can see all their products and services right there. You can schedule your free roof inspection right there. Their great team's going to come out, get on your roof, and make sure that you don't have any trouble spots, any leaks, any cracks, any damage, any screws loose, any shingles messed up. They will make sure that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. So check out Purple Turtle Roofing at roofturtle.com. It's roofing with heart, built to last. Okay, we have been on a recruiting discussion for, as Theo rightly said the other day, probably 2 weeks. 2 weeks of talking about this player getting recruited, this player committing, that player, where Alabama's standing in the recruiting rankings. Let's find out right here on a Wednesday morning as Alabama, class of 2027, Alabama recruiting. The last I looked, they were at 51 or 50. Okay, and moved to 47. Now, all this happens because teams ahead of them lose commitments and people flips. Nobody new has been added to the class since Asani Gales has joined and Jeremiah Beverly joined the class. Those are the last two members. So you're not missing any commits. But Alabama moved up to 47. We really, really appreciate Wesley Powell joining us yesterday. And really giving us an insight of where the Crimson Tide stands, what he likes about some of these recruits, who he likes the most, and where Alabama can improve as the cycle continues. But this morning, Pete Nakos of On3 Sports puts out a really insightful article that I think backs up almost everything we've been saying. Now, you don't have really Alabama explicitly mentioned in this article, but read some of these quotes and read some of these points that Pete Nakos is talking about. And I know a lot of you may or may not have On3 Premium. It's put behind a paywall, and this is the good stuff right here. So we appreciate, I've got a little subscription. I'll let you know what the good stuff is. Here's what he said. I mean, this stuff will blow your mind. And this stuff, I mean, maybe it will, but it's made me more affirmed in my position for this Alabama recruiting class. I know you're at 47 and you're worried about seeing how many 3-stars are in the class. How many are in the class? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 3-stars in the class. Oh my gosh, the world's going to heck. Alabama can't recruit anymore. Or is that really the case? Is it worth recruiting a 4-star if it's going to cost you $350,000 dadgum dollars? Oh my gosh, Pete Nakos. Here's your anonymous quote. Pete Nakos from an SEC general manager. So it could be Courtney Morgan and it could be any of the 15 other SEC general managers. The quote is, it feels like $350,000 was the starting price for a low 4-star this year. We've reached the period where everyone has an agent. There are no layups anymore in high school recruiting. Nothing is even reasonably priced. Sit with that for a second. And think about it. Do you really want Alabama to be giving $350K to a 4-star that's going to sit the bench this season, sit the bench in 2027 because look, we've done the look at what's going to happen in 2026 or 2027 with the freshmen and sophomores becoming sophomores and juniors. Like, you want E.J. Crowell to play? You want Xavier Griffin to play? Well, they're playing over Xavier Griffin is going to be playing over any freshman linebacker you bring in 2027, period. Like, watch the tape. Xavier Griffin is that dude. He may not get on the field above Caleb Woodson this year, but over anybody that you are recruiting in the class of 2027, you think about, are they going to play? Is my money going to show up on the field? Look, you've got to spin this and put your NFL brain on for a second. When I first started playing fantasy football, 15 years ago, something like that, roughly. One of the first leagues I was ever in, I asked a buddy, I said, how do you always know who to play? How do you always know, how to set your lineup, who's going to get the most opportunities? And he said, it's very simple, Joe. I just pull up the salary cap and I look at the offensive players who are getting paid the most money. And I know that those owners want to see their money on the field producing. And of course, if a wide receiver is making $10 million and then another wide receiver is making $1 million, you're going to throw the dadgum football to the $10 million man. And so think about what's on this Alabama roster. Do you really want to pay a 4-star that's not going to play, an offensive lineman that's not going to play over Jackson Lloyd or Michael Carroll, a second year of Rayson Delgatti, a third year of William Sanders, or a fourth year of William Sanders? Like, you're not going to pay any of these dadgum offensive linemen $300,000 when they're just going to sit on the bench. And that's a low number for an offensive lineman. That's a low number. Because get into this article. Here's a player that Alabama was in on. Alabama recruited Maxwell Hiller just a little bit. Where is my Maxwell Hiller in this article right here? Because I already read it. Yeah, right there. Okay, perfect. Maxwell Hiller's going to Florida. Right? He's going to go to Florida. Class of 2027. Big time dude. Looks like a tackle. But reportedly, Pete Nakos has him. This is a top 10 offensive lineman making $600,000 next year. Well, he's probably already getting started on that with some of the way the laws are set up and high schools are set up. But like $600K for year one in Florida. And so you bet your behind that he's starting for Florida, because you really think that they're going to put a $600,000 offensive lineman on the bench? I mean, the only way you do that is if they're totally incompetent and they cannot play. They are sandbagging you, right? Alabama is not in on this game. Alabama doesn't want to play this game, and they shouldn't want to play this game because it makes no sense. It makes no sense to be paying a freshman $3 and $4 and $5 and $600,000 if they're just going to sit the bench. Now, you might get back into this game in the class of 28. You might, but I would say still unlikely. I think you're really, really, really selective at this point in high school recruiting on, are we paying you top dollar because you're a 5-star, you're a 4-star, we see your ability to come right on campus and contribute, or are we offering you opportunity? Are we offering you development? Are we offering you loyalty? I mean, because I think that's what you're getting with some of these 3-stars in this class of 2027. You're offering them an opportunity to develop at a very low price. You're not paying these 3-stars that are in 2027's class $350K. Now, you're not paying them nothing. You're not paying them nothing by any means. But when it comes to what is worth it, right? I mean, think about premium pricing. All right, I'm going to out myself real quick. I'll out myself. I enjoy red wine from time to time. I do. I enjoy red wine from time to time. I have had nice bottles of wine, and I have had mid and bottom end bottles of red wine. And I understand the difference of aging and care and reputation and it's all the stuff that goes into wine and what makes it valuable and that sort of thing. I really, really like I really like the Prisoner is probably the top end red wine that I like. And look, if you're watching the show and you don't think that's a top end red wine, maybe that helps you understand my budget. Okay. But I like the Orwin Swift. I love his, I think his red wine is pretty nice, pretty good. But honestly, the regular old California label in the grocery store, it costs $12 a bottle. It does the exact same thing. I'm not a wine snob. And so if I can pay $12 in the store for a bottle of red wine that I'm going to enjoy, it's going to do the intended purposes. I'm going to relax. It's going to be a great evening, whatever. I'm paying the $12. Like instead of the 60 and 80 and 120, 150, 100, whatever, you can get all the way up there with bottles of wine. Like to me, I don't see the huge value in spending extra money on the higher end red wine. And that's what this Alabama staff is looking at. They're saying, well, these freshmen aren't going to be ready right now to jump on the field. Why the heck would I pay the high end value when they've got to sit the bench and they've got to develop a little longer? Like, you think about this class of 2026 that came in that was rated in the top end. I think you're going to expect a lot of these guys to contribute. I think you're going to see E.J. Cowell. You're going to see Xavier Griffin. I do think Cedarian Morgan's going to get on the field. I think you're going to see Jair Edwards on the field. Jamarian Matthews on the field. Like, you're going to see a lot of these guys on the field. And the class of 2025 that were freshmen last year that were mixed into special teams and were given smaller roles on the offense and defense, you're going to see them on the field in larger ways. That money is going to be on the field. And so when you think about it from an NFL standpoint or from a salary cap standpoint, because that's kind of what it's not a salary cap, but you only have finite resources. Alabama only has finite resources. And would it make more sense to spend $500K on a freshman that's going to come in and sit the bench for a year and a half, or spend that $500K in the transfer portal on a Terrence Green type? Now, I think he got more money than that, but you get my point. You're going to spend that money where it can show up on the field. So read this Pete Nakos article and don't be concerned about where Alabama is. I think this Pete Nakos article really, really affirms the fact that Alabama is being selective and is being really conservative about how they throw their money around. Next anonymous quote. This is another SEC front office staffer said. So this is different from the first one. It says, with the numbers being thrown around, these deals are not all going to be rev share. So depending on how people are structuring third-party deals, we're going to get to November, and people are going to see some stuff in writing and have a panic attack. Some of these schools are promising money that doesn't actually exist, that they can't actually pay. Now, not every school, but it's happening. And so that's what he said. You're going to get to November, and these players are going to be like, well, where's my money that we talked about? And they're either going to come up with it and to make them happy, or they're going to say, oh, sorry, deal fell apart, and those players are going to hit the transfer portal. Like, just kind of try to get a sense of what's going on here. Texas A&M reportedly going to spend north of $10 million in this class of 2027. An SEC general manager said Texas A&M is spending a bleep ton, easily $10 million. They use a curse word in the quote. Easily $10 million. We're probably around somewhere $5 to $7 million. So A&M obviously outspending all the SEC. Another general manager continues talking about A&M. They got some really good players. Rankings aside, we like a lot of the guys they're taking. They took some freaking good players. Elko's a damn good coach. This isn't going to be Jimbo Fisher all over again. Not that Jimbo isn't a good coach. Elko is just at a different point in his career. And then you think about what these schools are doing to get these kids solidly committed. Like, you get Billy Bob and I'm committing right now. And then they flip. Well, these schools are paying to have these prospects shut down their recruitment and stick with their original commitment. Next quote, Big Ten general manager. I had Notre Dame pay to shut down a Target's recruitment early, upping their deal from $400,000 to $450,000 just to get a commit and beat us. So Notre Dame paying $50K just to say, hey, this is going to be your deal at $400K, but we'll give you $50 if you commit right now and you stick with it. Do you really want Alabama to be getting in these games right now? I don't think that's a smart way to play this game. The market is out of control, and I think you do have to play the game to a certain extent, but you don't have to just be stupid about it. You don't have to just beat your chest. And look, I know you want to see Alabama at the top of the recruiting rankings. Everybody does. You want to see Alabama at the top of every rankings that have ever happened. But the way I think you'd much rather see Alabama competing for a championship, elevating the roster as a whole. And I don't think you do that by chasing freshmen and, while you chase freshmen, washing out prospects that you've developed, pushing out prospects that have contributed for you. Furthering on, an agent with more than 10 recruits in the 2027 cycle said, I think UCLA was a school that had a lot more money than people were anticipating. And so you've got a lot of teams that are trying to get in this game. Do you really want Alabama playing the money game with UCLA? Look, if a kid wants to go to UCLA, you let him go to UCLA. You say, enjoy LA, enjoy the West Coast, enjoy your money. You probably aren't about the right stuff if we're that honest with ourselves. You're probably not about winning and developing. And ultimately, if you're an Alabama fan, that's what you want to see. That's the kind of player that you want the coaching staff to go after. Interesting quote on my man David Gabriel Georges. David Gabriel Georges goes to Baylor in Chattanooga. He might be the best damn running back I've ever seen as a high schooler at this point in my life. I know that sounds very hyperbolic, but I think he is an absolute monster as a running back. He's expected to be the first $1 million running back recruit. He's set to announce his commitment at the end of July. I would have loved it if Alabama was in on this guy. But think about this. Quote is this. He's expected to be in a $1 million range, shy of $2 million. So what's that? 1.6, 1.5, 1.8, 1.7? Quote continues. It will be a multi-year deal. That's something the family has talked about. The family is very clear and wants a multi-year deal so they have a roadmap for his entire career. Look, I think David Gabriel Georges is going to be an NFL Hall of Famer if he stays healthy, if he doesn't get that bad injury. I really do. I think he is that dadgum talented. But do you really want to be giving multiple year deals out to a player without getting them on campus? I'm sure. I mean, that happens, and that's a requirement right now. But I think that everything in this article is pushing me further into, it's smart to be conservative. It's smart to be just take it easy, to not jump in with both feet. Don't be spending. Look, it's fine to spend money on premium products. It's nice to spend money on on items that give you joy, on items that enhance your life, on items that elevate your program. But there's a huge risk with these 16, 17-year-olds. Cornerback John Meredith is the number 2 recruit in the 2027 cycle, and he just recently committed to Texas over Texas A&M. You remember Wesley told us yesterday, Texas, one of the Big Six programs. Sources in the recruitment told On3 he's expected to make north of $1 million in year one in Austin, and he could ultimately sign a 2-year deal with the Longhorns. Quote, I was told the deal could end up being $3 million over 2 years. Well, you better put that cornerback on the field and think about it. Look, Alabama, you want the top cornerbacks in every class, but are they really going to be out there starting over Dijon Lee? Dijon Lee and probably Chuck McDonald at that time. Dijon Lee, Chuck McDonald, and Jordan Edmonds. This is silly. It's silly to chase that way. It's silly. We already got into the Maxwell Hiller. That's the next part of this article, and it continues. It talks about really the market went up because of the lack of depth in the offensive line class in 2027, because the talent in the class doesn't really match a lot of the what people are asking for. So you think about, where's Alabama's offensive lineman? Do you really want to be paying a premium price for offensive linemen that you deem aren't worthy? Here comes the next quote. A Big Ten source said, a guy who was making $200,000 last year is making $1 million this year, all because they just stink. I think people are going to get really burned. Like, okay, every offensive lineman's no good, so the 1 or 2 good, decent offensive linemen, they're going to rake you over a barrel. They're going to bend you over a barrel and make sure that they get their value out of you. Like, this is just not the game that you really need to be playing if you can't play it correctly. Like we heard with Wesley, A&M, Texas, the Big Six. Money's not real to those guys. Oregon, it's not real to those guys. But it is real to Alabama. Not to say that they're broke. I mean, Wes told us yesterday Alabama's not broke. But the money is real. It does exist, and it is finite. So you have to use it wisely. Continues. Flip watch. Look, Wesley said Alabama was going to have to flip a lot of players if they're going to continue to climb up the rankings and get more premium prospects, because a lot of the prospects are already committed. The next quote in this article says, I think the mentality for a lot of kids going in is, man, I'm just going to lock in this offer. That's my floor. And then I'm going to go out in my senior year and ball out and drive up a bigger market. Another source, everyone is going to flip these days, even the ones you don't think so. And they get into Easton Royal, who Wesley brought up, and is going to be really influential in the Munson sales recruitment. So look, all this stuff tells me Alabama is on the right track. Now, is it a risk? It's still a risk. it's still an absolute risk to play the recruiting this way, because what happens in the winter of 27 when Alabama's bumped out of the college football playoff and the transfer portal window opens? Will you retain Lussier Brooks? Will you retain Dijon Lee, London Simmons? Pick all the underclassmen you like. You've got to retain them to make this strategy work. And so it is a huge risk, but Pete Nakos offering details today from On 3 Sports that really affirms my position that the conservative approach, especially to high school recruiting, is probably the correct approach right now. I know it's zigging while everybody else is zagging. Everybody's falling into the trap of pay. And I understand, because these high school players do have value, but I think the better and smarter path is to be conservative. Stephen Wesley Weeks jumping in. I appreciate you watching, Stephen, and asking, do you really believe we're going to get Munchin sales? I really believe that there's a strong chance that you still get Munchin sales. I think that the money is going to be hard, especially when you're playing against Texas and Indiana. I think that LSU is going to get this flip from this wide receiver, Easton Royal, and that's going to open up the spot on Texas's roster. And then when you're going up against Texas, I think that they can just up it even higher. So really, it's going to depend on the pitch, and it's going to depend on can you touch Munchin Sales' heartstrings and say, look, you've cheered for Alabama all your life. We can get you into the NFL efficiently. We can develop you. And so I think that you can get him. Yeah, Stephen, you're exactly right. He says, I'm optimistic because of his background and his nickname. Exactly. A lifelong Alabama fan, and you've earmarked that he's worth the money, so you're going to offer him whatever you can, whatever your max is. And look, in a position to where it's not like it's an offensive line where, hey, you don't have a first rounder to really put. Like, you're probably going to get a first rounder in Ryan Williams this year at wide receiver, and Jeremy Bernard as a second rounder last year. Like, this staff, take you back to Washington, this staff has a proven track record with wide receivers, and so if you're his mama and daddy, you're thinking, hey man, the money now is the small potatoes compared to the NFL money, and Texas can get you to the league as well. Sark is a great developer, but I think that you've got a good pitch for him. You've got a strong pitch for him. And so I think you're right there. And look, I think he's probably your last major recruit, your last major target. So I think every ounce of energy that you have left in this cycle is being pushed in on Munchin Sales. And so I do think you have a strong chance to get him. I'm hesitant to say you will get him. Here we go. He says, I think we can't zoom past Gales, though. He's a recruit we would have been happy to get in Saban's tenure. I think you're exactly right, Stephen. I think that I think he has great straight line speed, and I think he's going to be explosive with the ball in his hands, and he looks like he is about the right stuff football-wise, with his physicality, with his blocking. I think he will. I totally agree with you. I'm excited about getting Osani Gales in the class. So I think you're doing good on wide receiver. I think you're going all in on Munchin Sales at this point. But I think Pete Nakos gives us a really good picture of what the recruiting landscape looks like right now. Not going to go all in on some high school senior that's going to sit the bench when they're going to ask you for $400,000 and $500,000 and $600,000. So we will see what happens with recruiting in the future. Here we go. Stephen, one more comment here. I think we get Sales and Hayden Stepp, though. Hayden Stepp is reportedly committing today. Later on today, Wesley joined us yesterday. Wesley Powell, our recruiting writer, joined us yesterday and said that he thinks it's going to be Oregon, which, pain, because you'd love to get him, but we will see if he commits to Alabama today. So it's going to be a great day. Look, enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the month of July. It's the last month without football. SEC Media Days is coming up at the end of the month, so it's coming before you know it. Happy birthday again to my younger sister Ellen. I hope you have a great day. Hope you all have a great Wednesday. Stay cool if you can. Team USA plays tonight at 7 o'clock on Fox. So get excited. Get your red, white, and blue gear out and watch some soccer. Theo said he's going to be back to join us again tomorrow. but his World Cup schedule is a little bit fluid because of everything that they're asking him to do, and he's working his tail off. So we'll see if he joins us tomorrow. You can follow him at Theo Fernandez _. I've already reached out to some East Carolina writers, so hopefully we can get some Pirate coverage here soon, and we can get looking forward to this 2026 season. Thanks for everybody watching today. Stephen Wesley Weeks commenting on the Facebook. Jeremy Scott, Carrie Simpson commenting on the Facebook. We appreciate all you guys so much, and we will talk to you again tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.